The Stranger Next Door. Gwen was a young, innocent girl who recently turned 21. She moved into her own house, even though her parents didn't want her to. Her parents were old, and her brother was too young. They wanted her to live with them, but she didn't want to listen to them. She'd rented a flat at a street around 10 blocks away from her parents' house. Because she was too young and moving in alone, she had to get some paperwork and formalities done. At the police station, the police warned her not to go there as there was something weird about that place and that many people who had been living there had gone missing. Gwen had already paid the rent for that house, and she didn't believe in all these things either. She ignored what the police said and drove herself to 5th Lewis Street, the street where she had rented her new house. At first, she was excited. She was thrilled. But when she reached there, she was confused. There were only 2 houses there. One of them was her house, and the other one was an old, spooky-looking house named as Black House. While she was getting out of the car, she heard a groaning sound from the Black House. She ignored it for that moment and went towards her house. When she entered her house, it was dusty, covered with spiderwebs, completely a mess. She spent almost 5 hours cleaning the house. She was so busy cleaning that she didn't even realize it was midnight. When she did, she ordered in dinner, ate, and headed upstairs to go to sleep. A few hours later, at around 3 o'clock, Gwen woke up to some weird groaning noises from the neighboring house. She looked out of the window and saw a middle-aged, shabbily dressed man punching on the wall. He seemed drunk by his behavior. No wonder nobody lives here, she thought to herself while staring at the man and the Black House. The next morning, Gwen woke up to a banging on her door. She quickly got out of her bed and answered the door. She looked around, but there wasn't anybody there. While taking a step forward, she felt something at her feet. She looked down. It was a package. She took it inside and opened it. She was surprised at what she saw. Inside the package was a painting of the Black House with a big X on it. She thought it must be her neighbor's parcel that came to her address by mistake. She found the painting to be amazing, but thought that the artist was crazy to ruin it with a strike-off on it. She decided to go to the Black House and hand over the painting to her neighbor. When she knocked on the door, there was no answer for some time. "Hello?" she said, knocking at the door again. Finally, a man in a hospital gown, with his face all bandaged up, opened the door. "What do you want, kid?" he asked. Here, I think your mail came to my address by mistake," Gwen replied as she gave him the painting. He grabbed the painting from Gwen's hand and slammed the door on her face. Gwen thought it was no big deal as he seemed drunk. Gwen went back home, freshened up, and grabbed her car keys and purse to shop for some groceries from a store up the street. While she was getting into her car, she saw her neighbor staring at her through his window. Gwen got into her car and drove off to the store. When she got there was nobody there. She ignored everything else, picked what she wanted, and while she was shopping, she felt as if she was being watched. She looked around, but there was no one in the store except for the cashier at the billing counter. She billed her groceries and drove back home. When she reached home, she dropped the bag of groceries on the table and laid down on the sofa, surfing through her phone. An hour later, she kept her phone on charge and headed out to see if her neighbor was okay. She couldn't see him anywhere, so she headed towards the table to sort out the groceries. While doing so, she again felt as if she was being watched. She felt something wave off her hair. She panicked, but looked around and saw nothing. She spent the day setting up and sorting out the house and headed towards the bed after a nice dinner. The next day, Gwen woke up to the sound of the shower running. She went to the bathroom and turned off the shower and went to make some coffee. She was a little puzzled. She wasn't sure what or who turned on the shower, but while she was making coffee, she felt that there was somebody watching her. She then heard loud noises from the neighboring house. She went on to look, and this time, he was punching and banging the wall. The lights started to flicker, and the noises went on increasing. She decided it's time to call the police and report the incident, but there was no connection. What? But I had internet just yesterday, Gwen thought to herself. In a minute, she looked back at the black house, and this time, she saw no one there. The noise stopped, and the lights went off. At that moment, she felt someone stroke her hair. When she turned around, it was the same man who lived in the black house. She freaked out. A minute ago, he was in his house, punching the wall, and now he was in her house trying to touch her. I'm here to take you away to a place where nobody will find you. Gwen pushed him away, grabbed her car keys, and drove off from there. She went straight to her parents' place. Her mom opened the door, and she was surprised to see her, as they didn't want her to move out, but she still did, going against what they wanted. Gwen told them someone was stalking her, but they thought she was playing around. They asked her to get out from there, because they were still angry with what she'd done. Gwen had no option but to leave from there. She then decided to go to the police station and report the incident. When the police asked her about her address and the house next to it, they were stunned and told her that nobody has been living there since years. Gwen was terrified on hearing this. She has been watching the man in the black house for about a week now. How was that possible? But she was so sure to have seen him there creating all that chaos because of past instances of people going missing from that house that Gwen had rented. The police decided to go and check the place out. The door of the black house was locked, and the house was all dusty and weary, as if it was abandoned for years. The police officers got in through a broken window and checked the whole house, but there was no sign of anyone living there. Gwen was shocked and couldn't believe her eyes. Then she took the cops to her house, because that's where the guy was the last time she saw him. The house was empty. Gwen had to be safe. The police asked her to pack her stuff and leave from there as fast as possible. After saying this, they left her house. Gwen was not in a position to think about where she would go next. Her parents' house, or rent another house, or what? Started packing her stuff quickly. When she was at the dressing table picking her stuff, she felt thirsty. She grabbed a bottle of water that was on the table and stood there sipping on it. At that moment, she felt a hand stroke on her head. She looked into the mirror. In front of her, it was the same man staring at her into the mirror from behind her. He stooped towards her shoulder and with an evil grin on his face, whispered in her ear, "Trying to get away, huh?" Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more videos. When you think of video games and mobile games, horror is the last thing that might come to your mind. Hi, I'm Nick, and today I'm going to share the terrifying experience me and my friends faced while playing Among Us. We're 4 friends: Patrick, Gordon, Harry, and myself. We've been together since childhood, and we are best of friends. We attended school together, played together, and hang out together in the evenings after school. My friends and I are very fond of video games and mobile games. Every time a new game is launched, either of us comes to know about it and tells the others. Then we all get together and play that game together. One afternoon, on our way back home from school, Patrick told us about a game that he got to know from the internet. It was called Among Us. It seemed interesting. When we got home, we installed the game in our computers and started playing it that evening itself. The game could be played either with unknown players, active at a given time, or privately with friends by using a secret code. I created a game for us and shared the private code on our chat group. Patrick, Gordon, and Harry joined in through that code. While we were just about to start playing, we saw a new entrant in the game by the name Connor. Now that was strange. Only the four of us knew the passcode to the game we were about to play. We thought it must be a glitch and discussed on our chat group that we wanted to play by ourselves. We decided to leave the game and create a new game. I shared a new secret code on the chat group. When everyone had joined and the game was about to start, there was a notification that it was Connor again who joined the game. We found it so irritating and wanted him to leave. At that moment, Patrick came up with an idea on our chat group. He asked us to start playing and remove Connor out of the game in the first round itself by voting him out as an imposter. We thought that was a great idea and we started to play. The first round of the game started and now it was time for the vote out. There's a section to discuss the voting in the game. We started to chat there. Gordon said that Connor must be the imposter according to me. Harry said yes, and I felt the same. To that, Connor said, "I'm not the imposter. Believe me, I am not." Patrick and I countered him and said, "No, we are sure it's you. Your actions were suspicious." Connor understood that we are purposely trying to vote him out of the game. He kept on saying he wasn't the one, and we started mocking him and laughing at him in the chat. When the discussion time was almost over, Connor said to all of us, "You all will regret this. This is a mistake you're making. You will pay for it." We made fun of him in the chat and Harry said, "We will see. Now you can get lost from here." We voted him out and continued playing. "That was fun," said Gordon in the chat group. After an hour or so, we were done playing and it was dinner time. We said bye to each other and decided to meet in school the next day. We met the next day in school, but Harry hadn't come. He was late. He came in during the lunch break with a very confused look on his face. He told us that after the game last night, he got a friend request from an unknown person named Connor Woodley. He asked us if he could be the same Connor whom we kicked out from the game we played. Gordon replied, "That's not possible. He doesn't know us. How will he find us then? I think it's just a coincidence." Patrick added, "Yeah, Gordon is right. There can be so many people by the same name Connor, so don't worry. It's just a coincidence." To which Harry said, "Maybe you're all right," and we attended the second half of the school. While we were returning home from school, Harry received a message on his phone from an unknown number. It was a picture of him attending class that day with a message that read, "You will pay for it." On seeing that message, we all were so horrified. At that moment, we realized that it was the same Connor from the game Among Us. How could he get Harry's number? Patrick said, "I told Harry not to worry and told him that we will come over to his place that night and be with him." We went home and decided to meet at Harry's house in an hour. I came home, freshened up, and told my parents I would be staying at Harry's that night. After I had dinner with my parents, while I was packing my stuff in a bag, my phone beeped. It was a message from the same unknown number with a picture of me having dinner. Below, it was the same message that Harry had received. "You will pay for it." I was shocked. I was terrified. I quickly called up Gordon and Patrick and asked them to hurry up. In a few minutes, we all were at Harry's place. Patrick asked me what was the matter and why did I look so worried. I showed him the message I received on the phone and they were shocked too. We had no idea what was going on and how did this Connor guy get our phone numbers. We sat there thinking, trying to figure out things. We looked into the game and checked for any clue, but there was nothing. After a while, there was a loud banging on the door. We looked at each other and thought, "Oh God, what do we do now?" We found the courage and decided to open the door. When we opened the door, we saw a man wearing a hoodie running outside the veranda. We found a note on the door which read, "I had told you, you will regret it. You all will pay for it." We quickly shut the door and ran to Harry's bedroom. We were so scared. At that moment, somebody threw a big stone through the window, breaking the window glass into pieces. I then decided it was too much and it was time to call the police. I took my phone and dialed 911. They asked for our address and reached Harry's house in a few minutes. We narrated the whole incident to them and they started to investigate. After a few days, we got to know that it was a boy from our school who was trying to scare us by using a fake name, Connor. He was older to us and he didn't have any friends. People thought he was a creep and stayed away from him. Now we know why people think that way about him. However, till this day, it's not known as to how did he get the private codes through which we were playing Among Us. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more videos.
My eyes couldn't focus for quite a few seconds after I opened them. My vision cleared and simultaneously an acute shot of pain in my jaws made me squint hard. As I slowly came to my senses, I could feel the pain surge through my body. It felt like finding things about yourself that you never knew existed. It took me a minute to realize that I was lying by the road in the night. What time was it even? The cold was unforgiving. I had my jacket on, but my legs were frozen. Should not have worn a skirt, they were a little short for me. I was covered in dust, which made me wonder how long I'd been lying there. Wait, where was I? How did I get here? Wait, who was I? I couldn't remember my own name. I checked my head for any injury, but I looked fine. Then how did this happen? Drugs? Benzodiazepines? How did I know that word? I checked my arms for punctures. Nothing. Oral dosage? Probably. Was I an addict or was this done to me? I stood up and looked at my body. I was young, but not too young. I checked my pockets, almost sure I wouldn't find anything. I was wrong. I had a tiny purse in it. There was very little money, some coins and a parking ticket. October 16, 1994, New York. So was I a 20-something woman from New York who knew about benzodiazepines but not her own name? Great. I turned the ticket over and found a number scribbled on it. Bingo. I walked out of the bushes onto the road. The highway seemed dead. Not a single vehicle in New York? How was that possible? I started walking and I saw lights in the distance. Looked like a convenience store. It probably was. I quickened my pace, pulling my jacket into a tighter hug as the pain threatened to break me into pieces. I reached the store and considered if I should enter it. I decided I needed to drink something at least. I walked in and saw an old woman behind the counter. I greeted her. She looked up and stared at me as horror crept into her face. "Can I use the restroom?" I asked. She just gaped at me. This was getting suspicious. "I'll buy water and some food," I smiled. "Not for free." She just pointed her wrinkly finger towards the back of the store, visibly shaking. I rushed into the room, locked myself in, and threw a glance towards the mirror. My heart skipped a beat. It wasn't my face. Whose face was this? I thought to myself. But I had a stitch mark as if there was a cut on my face. I had no idea whose face was I looking at. I checked the rest of my body and I looked fine. God, what am I? I got splashed some water in my face and walked out trying to look at the old woman. I walked into an aisle and picked up some water, some painkillers, and a scarf. I paid her, and I asked her without making eye contact, "How far is New York City?" 8 kilometers. Why is the highway so deserted? The government declared an emergency. What for? They are busting drug rackets. They've arrested a bunch of dealers. Gang wars and killings are all over the city. Alright. I started walking towards the door when I heard her croak. What happened to you? Without turning, I said, insect bite, and walked away. I exited the store and saw a phone booth right outside. I pulled out the ticket with the number and I entered the booth. I dialed the number slowly. I also memorized it just in case. The ringing began. I awaited, excited. I was finally going to find some answers now. "Hello," said a voice in British accent. I said nothing. "Who is this?" I had no idea what to say. "Who the hell is this?" Then I said the only word that I knew that night. Benzodiazepine. There were many types of benzodiazepines or benzos. It was a long shot. But how did I know all this? All I heard was silence from the other side. A truck passed by. "Where are you?" "I have no idea. I'm sorry all of this went wrong. What do I do now?" There was more silence. He didn't know how to help me. "Listen, get back to base and we'll figure this out. I've got to go now. They're hunting us down." "Wait!" All I heard was a click. I walked out, frustrated. Who's hunting us down and why? It suddenly struck me the old lady's words. They are busting rackets, arresting dealers. I didn't like where this was going. I ran back into the store. I heard police sirens. I looked back and saw 3 police cars speed past me. I remembered the truck that passed by while I was in the booth. An emergency had been declared. What was that truck doing outside? I entered the store and saw the old lady was staring at the television screen. A story on the drug racket was being broadcast. A plastic surgeon had been arrested for apparently helping criminals change their appearances and identities. "Turn it off," I said. I now remembered. I remembered who I was, what I was. Changed appearance, drug-induced amnesia. I was trying to close a chapter of my life that would destroy me, but it clung to me like a sickness. She looked at me scared but didn't turn off the television. The next story was being broadcast now. The police had found the corpse of a teenage girl on the outskirts of New York City. Her clothes were missing. She was last seen wearing a brown jacket and a black skirt. Her scared little eyes moved down my body, looked at my brown jacket and my black skirt that were too short for me. It wasn't particularly fun at this part, but sometimes some things have to be done. Never leave a trace. First rule I learned in the drug business. I picked up a butcher's knife from the stand and looked her in the eye. "I'm sorry," I bowed. She opened her mouth to scream, but it never left her throat. I looked back at her, lying in a pool of blood, and quickly turned away. I had to get back to base. I had business to take care of.
Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more videos. It was a regular day at the police station. I was busy on a case, and I was going through the details. At that moment, a young girl, aged maybe around 22, 23 years old, walked into the station. I was the in charge of the station, so she directly walked up to my desk and asked if I could help her. A beautiful lady, long hair, pretty face. She seemed to belong from a nice and rich family. I asked her to sit down and asked her what was the matter.
"Sir, I'm a murderer."
She was trembling as she said this. She was there to surrender herself. "Who did you kill?" I asked her after taking a long pause, because her first sentence was not really expected.
"I have killed 3 people."
I was really surprised to hear that. A girl so pretty could kill 3 people and was also confessing it in front of the police. The whole scenario was a bit unusual for me.
"I've killed my gardener, my driver, and
She paused a bit and started to sob.
my mother."
She started crying hard. I gave her some water to drink. She had a few sips, and when she controlled her emotions, she continued to talk.
Please, I beg of you, please arrest me, otherwise I'll kill someone else also.
Why did you kill them? And why would you kill others, ma'am? What's your name?
Julie.
She was still sobbing. Miss Julie, why did you kill them?
I don't know, it just happened. And after I killed them, I wondered why did I kill them.
Ma'am, I'm seriously not getting this. And I can't arrest you without any complaint or without seeing the body of the dead people you're talking about. She looked very tense to me. So I continued. Can you tell me where are the bodies?
I dug them in my garden.
She didn't seem fake, but I was finding it difficult to believe what she was saying. I wanted to know the truth. I decided to go to her house. Took 2 constables along with me. When we reached her house, she took us to her garden and told us the places where the bodies of the gardener and driver were dug. I commanded the constables to dig out the bodies. Where is the body of your mother? I asked the girl.
Inside the house. I killed her and immediately came running to the police station.
I started to follow Julie. It was a big house with several rooms. She really was from a wealthy family. She took me inside the house and then stopped in front of a dark room.
Inside! My mother is lying inside!
She said this and started to cry again. I slowly started to move inside the room. The room was so dark, and it was difficult to see anything. It was weird why there was no light in there, whereas the rest of the house was lit. I had 1 torch with me, so I decided to turn that on. I searched the whole room, but the room was empty. Then I saw a closed door, and it seemed as if there was another room behind it. I opened that room, and I was shocked to see that there were 3 bodies lying inside that room. 2 men, maybe Julie's gardener and the driver, and 1 old lady, maybe her mother. I was wondering why Julie told me that the bodies of the gardener and driver were out there in the garden. Ah! Someone hit me hard on my head from behind. I turned around. I was terrified to see Julie standing with a bat in her hand that was covered with my blood. Why? I asked her in a trembling voice. She came closer to me and hit me again to make me fall on the ground. With that, I became unconscious. My vision turned blurry. She bent down and with a grin on her face said,
Because it's fun.
She took my gun and rushed outside. I heard 2 shots fired, and I went unconscious after that. After some time, I gained consciousness and slowly opened my eyes. I saw that my hands and legs were tied up. I looked around and saw the bodies of the gardener, driver, and Julie's mother on one side. On the other side of me were the bodies of my 2 constables, who Julie must have fired the gunshots on. I heard a humming sound from the corner of the room. I looked from where the sound was coming. I saw Julie there, coldly sitting in front of a mirror, combing her hair and humming the song. Hi, today I'm going to tell you a story that I heard from my mom. This story is about her aunt who encountered a spirit. I was very small back then, and since my mom's mother died when my mom was young, I used to call her Grandma. Strange but true. Sometimes things like dolls, paintings, jewelry, etc. become haunted objects after a paranormal activity surrounding it. Anyways, let's move towards the story. It was the year 1980. Grandma had moved into a new home. After setting up the house, she went for a walk across the street to explore the vicinity. On her way, she saw a store that sold antique products. Grandma was very fond of antiques and wanted to have one in her new home. She entered the store and found antiques with year-old intricate work, beautiful paintings by famous painters, and furniture that was not easily available during her times. She started looking around for what could she buy and finally came across a painting. It was a painting of a beautiful scenery by a well-renowned painter of the ancient times. She bought the painting and headed home. She hung the painting on the wall of her living room, and it surely did increase the beauty of her house. A few days later, she invited her best friend, Melanie, for dinner and to see her new home. When Melanie came to visit Grandma, she was in awe of the painting. She loved it so much that she asked Grandma to buy one for her too, if she found one in the store any time she visited, and she would pay her for it. Grandma told her it was an antique and only one such painting was available. They had a good evening together, and after dinner, Melanie left. While Grandma was heading to sleep, she looked at the painting and an idea struck her. She decided to get a copy of this painting made by a painter and gift it to her friend. What if she can't have the same? She can at least have the copy if she liked it so much. Grandma thought to herself. The next morning, she hired a painter to draw a similar one. He came home and took the painting and said he would complete the work in a week. 2 days later, it so happened that the painter died in an accident. His assistant came to Grandma's house to return her the painting. After that, she hired another painter for the same job. The very next day, the painter returned the painting to Grandma and said that he can't work on the painting. On asking the reason behind the refusal, he said that he encountered a spirit that prevented him from completing the painting. What rubbish, Grandma thought. He then narrated the whole incident. He said that it was 11 o'clock last night when he started the painting of the scenery, and every time while putting the paintbrush on the canvas, he felt a hand tightly holding his wrist. He first took it as a false notion and went outside for a fag. But after returning, when he tried to paint, he again felt the same thing. He said that he clearly saw the shadow of a man with long hair. He got so scared and stopped painting. Grandma took it as a nuisance but said nothing to that painter. She gave the job to 2 other painters after that, and they also returned it back to her, saying that they had faced a similar incident. One of them faced it during daytime. Grandma was shocked and couldn't believe what was happening. That night, out of curiosity, she decided to work on the painting herself. She was not a painter or anything, but she thought of trying, just to see what happens. Now, what happened next was a big shock to Grandma. She encountered the spirit when she made an attempt to put the paintbrush dipped in paint on the canvas. She exactly felt the same thing like the other 3 painters, and also saw the shadow. After seeing the shadow, she was sure that it was the spirit of the first painter who died in an accident, as he had long hair. She fell ill after that incident. Doctors were unable to cure her. Finally, a relative visited a person who's an expert in paranormal activities, and he helped her in getting cured. After recovering, she said that when the first painter was given the job, he appreciated the painting so much and happily said that he would have never let any other painter do the job. So, it was obvious that his spirit prevented other painters from completing the task. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more videos. It was around 4:30 p.m. when I got a call from my uncle, Gerard. He was unwell since a few days and wanted me to take him to the hospital to see a doctor. When I reached his residence, I was shocked to see him. The color of his skin had turned yellowish. His eyes were yellowish too. He looked pale and barely had any energy to walk or speak. I asked him what was happening, but he had no clue and hence wanted to show himself to the doctor. I hurried myself to help him walk to my car. His brother, Uncle Jonas, too was there. He had flown from another city the same morning because of Uncle Gerard's health. At the hospital, the doctor told us that his condition is very serious and he would have to undergo a surgery. He had a serious infection in one of his kidneys, which had to be treated. However, they said it would take 3 to 4 days, as they did not have any beds to accommodate Uncle Gerard that day. They gave him some medicines and asked us to get him admitted in the hospital after 3 days, and they would perform the surgery. We took the medicines and left the hospital. I drove them back to his apartment. He asked me to stay with him the night in case he needed me. When Uncle Gerard was resting, Uncle Jonas and I sat in the living room discussing what had gone wrong suddenly. I had met him a month back and he was absolutely fine. Then what had happened in such a short span of time? At that moment, Uncle Jonas told me that Uncle Gerard was into spirits and ghosts. He had met a group of people who were into all of this, and they used to meet frequently to connect with the evil spirits. They tried to talk to them and understand from them the reasons that made them evil, and so to help them turn into good spirits. I found that weird and creepy. Was that even possible? I thought to myself. One such incident occurred where Uncle Gerard tried to connect with an evil spirit all by himself, and that activity didn't go very well. And he has been facing the consequences of that now. His sudden deterioration in health was because of that incident, and the spirit was now behind Uncle Gerard's life. I was horrified. I asked Uncle Jonas if a doctor would help here, or we could get in touch with that group to seek help. Uncle Jonas told me that he had already tried connecting with them that morning after he flew down, but the members denied knowing Uncle Gerard or being involved in such activities. At that moment, we heard a scream. No! It was Uncle Gerard. It was around 1 a.m. He woke up complaining of stomach pain and started to puke blood. I was so scared and didn't know what to do. Uncle Jonas went outside to call for the ambulance. I stood there, watching Uncle Gerard struggle so much. He was not able to breathe properly. He started taking long breaths and sat on the floor. Tried to pick him up and make him sit on the chair. Suddenly, he smiled and said, "My time has come. I want to die, so let me die in my own home at least. No need to call anybody." I was shocked to hear that, and my eyes were filled with tears. I told him, "Please don't say that. Everything will be all right." "No, I know my time has come. I can see a bad spirit coming to take my soul. It's him. He is around here. It's the same spirit. I've been seeing him around me since morning. I didn't tell you guys because you would have got scared. Even now, there is a head without a body on top of the wardrobe. Just right there. It's him." I was trembling. I turned around to quickly see if there was anyone on top of the wardrobe. I didn't see anyone there, but I was frightened to death. And suddenly, after a few minutes, I could feel something around us. But my body was not ready to believe in all of this. I cried and said, "Why are you saying this? There is nothing up there. It's just your imagination, and you'll be fine. Please, don't worry. Everything will be fine." Taking a long breath, he again said, "Can't you see? It's right there on top of the wardrobe. He even smiles at me. It's just a head with wide open eyes. I didn't want to look back at the wardrobe, but had to. And as I turned around this time, I really saw a devil's head without a body looking angrily into my eyes. It had long teeth, wide open mouth, red eyes, and horns on the head. It was just like I used to see in the horror movies. I shouted loudly, and it disappeared within a second. For a minute, I felt as if Uncle Gerard was really about to die. Maybe I was next, as I was trying to save him. At that moment, I heard Uncle Jonas calling me outside. I could hear the sound of the ambulance, and that he had come along with the ambulance and doctor. I rushed outside to tell him what I'd seen. When I reached outside, I found no one. Uncle Jonas was not to be seen anywhere, and there was no ambulance. It was around 3 a.m. I sensed something wrong was going on inside the house. I ran inside the apartment and found Uncle Gerard lying in the pool of blood he had puked in. When I called him, he didn't reply at all. I shook his body, but there was no reaction. I understood that the fucking devil had taken his soul away, and it was him who tricked me by calling me outside in Uncle Jonas's voice. I shouted angrily, "How dare you! Come in front of me! Why the hell are you doing this to him?" But there was no response. I was petrified, but deeply sad with what had happened. I didn't know if I could change anything, or if there was a way to get my dear uncle back to life. I sat there crying. A few moments later, Uncle Jonas came with a doctor. I looked at him with tears in my eyes, and he understood his brother was dead. After a few days, I told Uncle Jonas about the evil spirit and what had happened that day. I was shocked to know that even he saw the devil's head, and it was trying to stop him from calling the ambulance.